What's going on, NEM crew? Welcome back to another video. Today we're actually talking about the Datsun. We're not working on the Datsun. We're going to be going through the mod or part list that we've done and put into the Datsun, just so if any of you guys want to do a similar setup or are kind of curious of what's kind of involved with the modifications that we've done, you guys can kind of follow this video right here. I will be putting a list in the description below, so if you guys don't want to watch this, check out that list and you guys can reference that. Let's just dive right in. Alright guys, before we start, I'm just going to say this is just going to be the mod list itself. It's not going to be all the parts that I put into the Datsun in the entirety of owning it. I released a video about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago that went over just a summary of the modifications that we did over the past year, and those are going to be the exact parts that I'm going to be going through. So if you guys watch that video, this will be an exact parts list of what was required to get that work done on the Datsun. We'll start from in the rear because that is where most of the stuff happened and biggest changes. We're going to start with the donor car. So with this, there are parts that were required from another car to actually put on the Datsun. For those of you who don't know, if you don't own a Datsun, it is disc or drum brakes in the rear. It doesn't have like CV axles. They have like half shaft axles with U-joints in them, and the differential is like an open diff, nothing too crazy. So with this build, I wanted to change all of that. So I came across a kit from Techno Toy Tuning, which allows us ultimately to get some parts off of a donor car, and then we can do a limited slip differential conversion. We can do a axle conversion as well as a rear disc brake conversion, all in one. So that's the route that I ended up going in. In terms of donor vehicles, you can use the rear end out of an S13, S14, R32, R34, Z32, Z32 twin turbo, as well as a Infiniti Q45. I ended up going with a Nissan 300ZX twin turbo, so the Z32 TT, just because it was something that I had access to, something that came up in my area for a really good price, so I ended up pulling the trigger on that. I ended up getting the front and rear subframes, but you actually just need the rear subframe, and you're pretty much going to need all of the components off of it other than the subframe itself. We're going to be putting the differential, the axles, the rotors, the hubs, the calipers, the pads, the brake, e-brake hardware, including the e-brake cables. All that stuff is going on, would be going on your car. So that's just something you need. You can definitely try and individually obtain those parts, gather those parts. The easiest way would just be to pick up the subframe itself, and then go from there. So depending on what subframe you're pulling or your donor car is, then you'd get your Techno Toy Tuning kit. You'd order it for that specific subframe, and they would send you all the parts needed to kind of mate that to your car. One thing to keep in mind, if you are going to be going with one of those donor cars that run a R230 differential, in my case the Z32 twin turbo does have an R230 differential, there is some trimming and notching that you have to do out of the body underneath to make it clear and fit and just sit where it needs to sit. So just keep that in mind, because I know some people aren't really interested or don't want to do that. It was not too crazy of a job, but just note that is something that you have to do to make that kit work. Just the differential's a lot taller, a lot bigger, beefier, so to make it fit, there is a little bit of modification. That rear end conversion kit comes with pretty much everything you need to get all that stuff to work. It comes with your backing plates. It does come with your coilovers as well. And then you do have the choice in terms of what top hat you want, and in my case I went with a solid pillow mount that just bolts in the factory same way, because I didn't want to have to cut up or weld to the actual the strut tower stock body. So that's something that I opted to kind of shy away from and avoid. Ultimately, if you guys are going with the same route, you can just choose what fits your purposes better. Other than that, I did end up on top of the actual rear end conversion kit. I did get a set of rear control arms that are fully adjustable. Other than that, it's really just your rear subframe from your donor, the rear end conversion kit, and then the lower control arms. That's pretty much all I got in the rear. Right now, I don't have a sway bar that fits all the changes that I've done. So I'm kind of working on maybe getting something like that. So just note, you won't be able to reuse the stock sway bar. It does mount in a different position as well, but that's all kind of set up and included in the kit. But you do need a specific different sway bar to actually make it fit through and work with that rear end conversion. So just keep that in mind. Onto the front, we ended up doing coilovers, and then we ended up doing lower control arm, tension control rods, as well as new hubs. We need to get new hubs because we're using the hubs off of the Nissan 300ZX. That being a 5x114 bolt pattern, we need to have something that matches. I mean, unless you wanted to do a weird setup where you'd have 4 bolt on the front and 5 bolt on the rear. Totally up to you. But we ended up going, keeping it all the same. We ended up getting new wheels, obviously, because changing the bolt pattern, we needed wheels that would actually fit. We went with 16x8s, and they fit fairly well on the stock body. Other than that, in the front, we wanted to upgrade the brakes. So we did a big brake kit from Techno Toy Tuning as well, which utilizes Wilwood calipers, as well as Wilwood rotors. It's a 2-piece rotor. And I ended up getting blank rotors instead of having like any drilled or slotted rotors. But other than that, their 4-piston rotors are definitely big enough for the Datsun, being a small, light, nimble car. Other than that, with the front and rear suspension, that's pretty much it. I mean, everything is pretty much new. There's no stock parts on the car other than the inner and outer tie rods. Everything else, and the steering rack, everything else is brand new, aftermarket. We also did change the exhaust, so we went with a Greddy manifold or header, and then we went with the Fujitsubo Legalis R stainless exhaust system. Just note, if you are going to be using that system or something that's meant to be used on a stock car, there will be some modification you have to do. Because we're changing so much in the rear end, it just makes everything so much bigger. So it actually needs just slight modification to make it work around like the differential and all the new components. So I had to take it to a shop, get that fabricated, and get some hangers, new hanger points all done up. But everything's good to go. You will definitely need an alignment. I know that's not technically a mod or a part, but just something to keep in mind. And there will be some bolts, nuts here and there. The kits from Techno Toy Tuning and all the parts do come with all the hardware. But if you are going to be, for example, trying to make the e-brake cables work that came from your donor car, it's not just going to bolt right in. There's going to be a little bit of modification, little brackets, maybe some slight little bit of welding we had to do just to kind of make the stock e-brake system on the Datsun conform and work with the new cable. So there is some little things here and there that you will have to do. Obviously, doing such a big change of this magnitude, there's going to be little things here and there that you kind of have to work through. But other than that, that's pretty much the list of components and parts that we really had to do to get this build done. Again, there will be a little bit more detailed of a list in the description below. I'm not going to get into prices and all that kind of stuff. If you guys want, I'll put Techno Toy Tuning's website. You can kind of go and see the prices themselves, because I mean, realistically, if you're going to go into this depth of a build, I mean, price definitely is a consideration, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be biting this much of a project off, like if you're going to be diving in this deep, at some point, you just got to bite the bullet when it comes to, how much money you're spending. But if you guys have any questions specifically about parts and things like that, I will do my best again to keep that list as detailed as possible in terms of what we got. In terms of specs for like spring rate, things like that, I'll have to go back. I can't remember the exact spring rates we got, but yeah, it's been a long process, and some of the stuff were ordered years ago, so for me to remember, it's not always easy. But I'll see if I can dig up some more specifics in terms of my old invoices and stuff and kind of put that in there, so it'll be a good resource if you guys are going through it. But again, if you have any questions, just put it down in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys want to see next. We do have a lot of stuff coming down the line for the Datsun, so hopefully you guys will subscribe, hit the notification bell to know and see when that stuff comes down the line. But other than that, that's it for this video. Peace out and stay classy, crew.